Welcome to our podcast, Deep Dive, MTR Explores Subsea Technology. I'm your host, Rhonda Moniz, and this is your portal to the latest news on all things subsea technology. This episode is brought to you by the publishers of Marine Technology Reporter, the world's largest circulation publication serving the global scientific, defense, and offshore energy subsea market. For more information, visit marinetechnologynews.com. Okay, welcome everyone to this episode of Deep Dive. I am super excited, and that's actually putting it lightly. So in 1975, Donna Tobias, I hope I'm saying that name right, graduated from the Navy's deep sea diving school, and she was the first woman to do so. Today, on the 50th anniversary, well, maybe not exactly because that was in March, but it's been 50 years. We have three Navy divers, three female Navy divers. I'm super stoked to talk to them. It's an honor to have them on Deep Dive on our podcast. And so I want to welcome you ladies. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you all for your service and for being as cool as you really are. So before we get into this, let me just, so we have, online here, we have Lisa Correa, we have, Karen Gallaudet, and we have, Bobby Scully, and all three of them have been, U.S. Navy divers. And I've got tons of questions, and I'm sure everybody's excited to hear, about their service and what they've done. But I think I'd like to start with we'll start with you, Bobby. How's that? What first drew you to the Navy and specifically becoming a diver? How did that happen?
Hi, Rhonda, and thanks for having us here. I get that question all the time, as you might imagine. And, I joined the Navy in 1981, which was shortly after Donna went to dive school. It was just kind of a fluke, unlike a lot of people, a lot of ladies, especially in the early 1980s, which it was very rare for women to join the Navy and especially do what we did. And I didn't grow up thinking that I would join the Navy. It was not an aspiration of mine when I was growing up. Although my father was in the Navy in the early 1950s. He was a radioman, an enlisted man. But that was before he was married and had kids. So I knew my dad was in the Navy, but I wasn't around when he was in the Navy and did not grow up as a Navy brat, which is an affectionate term we call Navy children. So I grew up in central Illinois in the Midwest, far away from the oceans. I did love the water. I grew up on the Illinois River, boating and water skiing, and I loved to swim. Never dove or snorkeled a day in my life before I was in the Navy. But I went to college right in my hometown. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in biology. It was time for me to graduate from college, and it's like, well, what do I do with myself now with a bachelor's degree in biology? Didn't even leave my hometown to go to college. It's like, I would like to get out and see the world. So I went and I talked to a Navy recruiter, and it's like, wow, the Navy. Join the Navy, see the world, get some adventure. And I thought, well, that would get me out of central Illinois. My hometown was called Normal, Illinois, if you could imagine that. So, I wanted to get out of Normal, Illinois. So I went back and told my dad, hey, Dad, I want to join the Navy. And he almost had a heart attack, because the Navy of the 1980s was not the same as the Navy of the 1950s. But eventually he came around and said, well, my daughter wants to be a naval officer. Well, okay. So anyway, I went to officer candidate school in the early 1980s and went through officer candidate school, where it was finally, mixed. Men and women went through officer candidate school at the same time together. And there were 20 women in my commissioning class at Officer Candidate School, totally separate from this is completely different than the Naval Academy, which hopefully Karen will talk about. And this is right when they started allowing women to go to a very small number of ships called auxiliary ships. And so in my officer candidate class, there was one job offering for a woman to go to a ship. So out of the 20 women who were able to select jobs, there was one job on a ship available. And I just happened to be high enough in the class ranking that I was able to select that shipboard billet. And I thought, as long as I'm in the Navy, I might as well go on a Navy ship, right? If I'm going to do it and have the adventure, let's go all out and have the full Navy adventure. So I selected the ship billet and went to a submarine repair ship. Still had no
Wow.
idea, a concept about Navy diving, and until I got to my ship and there were Navy divers on that ship, and that kind of set me on my path towards, hey, there's this Navy diving stuff. Now, growing up, I did read a lot of Clive Cussler, and if any of you have ever read Clive Cussler and know about Dirk
Yeah.
Pitt, I was a real
Yeah.
Dirk Pitt fan.
Mhm.
So Navy diving, Dirk Pitt, that kind of led me down that path.
That's great. No snorkeling and just right into Navy diving. How about you, Lisa? What was your impetus to become a Navy, to join the Navy and become a diver specifically?
Well, for me, I was that Navy brat. My dad was in the Navy. He was stationed in Japan. So, um, basically grew up around the water because a lot of the naval bases are by the water. So, at that time, I didn't think I was going to join the Navy, but I was like, hey, it's a good job. Well, what had happened once we moved, my dad retired out of Japan. He was stationed there for like gazillion years, like 17 years on and off ships. And once he moved us back to the States for the first time in some podunk Texas town. Um, I was about to I was about to graduate, and I saw this Navy recruiter guy. I said, "Hey, come join us. Take your ASVAB. This is that." And then I did it. And what had happened was actually joined the Navy without really telling my dad to say. But because I graduated when I was 17, so I had to get my dad's permission to say. So when the time came to enlist, I had brought the recruiter to the house, and I was like, "Oh, by the way, um, I'm joining the Navy, and I'm going to leave in a few weeks," kind of thing. And my dad he was kind of happy, but at that time he was a fleet Navy, so he's never heard of the Seabees at all. He is like, "What did you join? What is the Seabees?" It's like, "Well, it's a civil engineering corps for the Navy. We do construction." He's like, "Oh my God, why didn't you pick a traditional woman job?" And I was like, at that time, it was he was really fixated on DP. I think it was like a data processor. So I think it probably evolved to our IT department. Or why didn't you pick admin job? Or why didn't you be a corpsman? And oh, that's a great job for a woman. And he was pretty in that realm. But
Yeah.
long story short, I joined the Seabees, and on top of that, it was a benefit if you pick a non-traditional job, which is that didn't equivocate to like a woman leading type job like corpsman, being a cook, yada yada. Will give you extra college money. So I was like, okay. So I definitely like signed up for the CVs. I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And plus, I love being a mechanic because my dad, before the whole Fast and the Furious thing came about on the TV, my dad used to do like street racing. So a lot of my time, I grew up at the auto hobby shop. So that was my
Ah.
playground. And after school, he'll pick us up and we go to the auto hobby shop, and we tinkered on, carburetors and stuff like that. So I knew that going to the Seabees were and to be a mechanic was perfect alignment for my my job preference. So I joined the Navy, and my first duty station was Cuba. And one day I was at the airport and I seen this girl. She was in her boots, UDTs, as they call it, the little brown shorts, a cami top, and literally a half sea bag full of stuff, like doing a sea bag drag on her shoulder. And I go, excuse me. It's like, what is your job in the Navy? Because everybody else is, full uniform, and she just looked cool. She was walking through the airport like she owned the place. And she's like, oh, I'm actually a EOD tech. I was like, well, what's that? And
Oh
goes, oh,
yeah.
we're divers and we came down for training. Yeah. I was like, oh, so Navy diving? It's like, yeah. It's like, it's a specialty job. You have to volunteer for it. It's like, oh, okay. And that was it. But at that time, the Seabees, I came in like 92 ish. So, not that it wasn't open for this females to join the CB diving, but there wasn't any female there. So I thought that I needed to cross rate to a fleet. So I started my package. I said, you know what? I'm going to be a Navy diver. But what had happened was once I got to after um, school and everything. I went back to NMC before I moved back to the States, got TDY, or not TDY, but transferred to a battalion. And of course, at that time, Naval Mobile Construction Battalion didn't have females also. So I was one of the fourth female that was brought into the Naval Construction Battalion unit. And my battalion was called NMCB4. So it was kind of weird. But once I got there, I went on another first deployment with the Seabees, and then I actually met a Seabee divers in Japan. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know Seabees had diving unit. But what do you guys do? So we do underwater construction. It's like we do everything you could do on a surface, but we just do it underwater, and we travel the world and everything else. I was like, oh, that's even better to be a Seabee, travel the world, work out, and do a bunch of cool places, go to cool places. It's like that's what I'm going to do. So I pulled my package out of for to transfer to fleet, stayed in the Seabees, and then that's how I became went through the whole process of being a Seabee diver. But by the time I was finished with the package, Margaret, she was the actual first Seabee diver, female Seabee diver. So I followed her into the program. So yeah,
That's
it was really basic. I just wanted to travel the world. I saw some cool chick. I was like, that's
I'm
exactly
seeing a
what I
theme
want
here of getting out of towns and traveling the world. I'm definitely seeing a theme here.
to
What
do.
about
Yeah.
you, Karen? It sounds like you had a little bit different experience.
Yes, thanks, Rhonda. And first, I'd like to say that thanks for having us and talking about this important reunion that we have coming up. And I'm excited to be on this panel with both Bobby and Lisa, current Women Divers Hall of Fame member and an upcoming. I'd like to recognize Lisa for that. That's really exciting. And yeah, so I definitely had a little bit different path. Of course, I think anyone who joins the Navy loves to travel and wants to see the world, right? We all know that. So basically, I was in high school and I was kind of like most other people, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I took the career assessment test that you take in high school, and it said I should be an oceanographer. And I had no idea what an oceanographer was. So I looked it up and researched it, and I did. I loved everything that oceanographers did or studied. I love the water. I lived on the Chesapeake Bay. I grew up in Maryland. And I loved going to the beach. I had snorkeled, had never dived before. So we went on a trip to the Bahamas. And so this was probably 1984. And I thought, oh, look, there's a dive shop. So I went up to the dive shop And I said, hey, I want to go diving. He's like, oh, do you have any training? No, I have no training. So this Bahamian dive shop owner, he gave me the gear and he said, here, put this on, go swim out the beach past the waves, swim up and down under the water for 30 minutes, and then come back. And if you do that, I'll take you diving tomorrow. I said,
Wow.
okay, sure.
Wow.
So I just put it on, tried to figure out the buckles, put the regulator in my mouth. Oh, okay. And I'd been a swimmer my whole life, so I wasn't worried about it. I went out, I did it. I came back, and he looked at me. He couldn't believe I did it. And he was like, okay, well, I guess I got to take you. So the next day I went diving. I had to stay right by his side. You know, a long time ago, you can't do this anymore. So anybody out there, you have to have certifications. But back then, you did it. It was a little different.
Oh,
so I went diving with him, and it was the most amazing 2 days. And I was hooked. So came back, and that was 1984. And my dad had found an article in the newspaper about another girl from Maryland who graduated first in her class from the Naval Academy, Christine Holderride. She majored in oceanography, and she was going out on ships, and I think she service selected somewhere in the Red Sea. She had done research and studying, and then she was going to MIT. And I thought, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. And so because of that, I did. I applied to the Naval Academy, started working out more for the things you have to do to get in there. Got accepted, started there in 1987. So went to the Naval Academy thinking full on, I'm going to be an oceanographer. So I did all kinds of specialty oceanography training in the summer. But to make my life more fun, I joined the scuba club. And a very interesting thing is now I have found out that Bobby was actually the officer rep of the scuba club when I was in the scuba club, which is kind of funny.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, that's funny. So I joined the scuba club, and I went through all my PADI qualifications all the way up to rescue diver. And I started working on master diver. And I remember the enlisted divers who were there. They're, why are you doing this? You're never going to use this out in the fleet. You should become a special operations. You should be a Navy diver. And then you can really, do this. You don't need this qualification. And I thought, wow, I never thought about that. So I started doing the workouts with the guys there who were in the special operations club, and thought, okay, this is pretty cool. Maybe I want to do this. One of my professors found out that I was interested in that. And he actually, he was a captain in the NOAA Corps. He sat me down and said, I hear that you're thinking about going diving. I said, yes, sir. It sounds like a really great career path. He said to me, well, someday Karen might want to have kids and a family. And it's much better to be an oceanographer than a special operations officer. And I thought, oh, okay. Well, thank you, sir, for your advice. And I just kept doing the workouts, kept trying out. I passed the screener. And the way it worked back then was service selection night. They would call your number according to your class rank. You'd walk down to a stage, and you would see laid out in front of you what you could choose. And I knew there was one spot for an oceanographer to go to the Scripps Institution of Oceanography to work on their master's degree, which I really wanted to do. And there was one spot for a female special operations diver. There were 10 male spots, one female spot. So I thought, okay, well, we'll see which one's open when I get up there. And when I got up there, someone had already taken the oceanography spot, so I took the special operations spot. And I was really glad I did. I went to dive school, started in 1987. There was one other woman in my class. It was a class with international students, and just loved it. It was great. So that's how I started.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history, exactly. Yeah, I'm even wearing my shirt. I found it, which is pretty crazy.
Appropriate. Yeah, and it's really interesting to hear your story, because I also we've talked off camera a little bit, or been back and forth in emails, and you guys know my background. I come from the diving world, and have 30 years. I started. Oh, I don't want to say this because then people are like counting on their fingers, but I get certified when I was in 1976, and it's interesting to hear, I remember back then, people ask me the same question, like, my specialties, I've worked with the Navy. I've trained them in underwater forensics and and I worked with police and underwater forensics and worked with the naval EOD guys extensively. I've been out there, and you just see so few women in our industry, whether it's on the science side, it's more so on the science side, but especially in some of the areas that you guys have been in. And I'm curious, what was the training like? And we can start with you, Karen, because I know you have a little bit of a different start than Bobby and Lisa, but the training I'm sure was very similar. What was that like? And what surprised you about it? Was there anything that surprised you about it? What was some of that? Give a little peek into that, if you will.
Sure. So the hardest part for me was, even though I was a swimmer, it was really hard to do pull-ups for me. And I think that might be typical of a lot of women. And, the time when I went, which is probably the same for the other two ladies, there's no difference. If you're a man, you're a woman, doesn't matter who you are,
Right.
you have to have the same physical qualifications. So the test to get in, you have to swim 500 yards, which was easy. And then you had to do sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups, and then run a mile and a half. And it was all one after another. And the pull-ups we had to do at least 10. And for me, when I started, I couldn't do one. It took me 6 months to train with the Special Operations Group to be able to do one pull-up. But then 6 months later, I could do 12. So that was the hardest part, I think. I loved Panama City. I loved the training. I loved the people that I trained with. I loved the diamond community. They were all super supportive. Even anything that any of us had a hard time with. Someone had a hard time with the run, or someone had a hard time with the classes, or someone had a hard time pulling themselves out of off the ladder. I had international students in my class, which I think was probably the most surprising, that half of my class was from other countries, officers from other countries. And the other woman who was with me, she was a lieutenant. So she was 27 and I was 21. And I remember when we're out there, we're working out, we're doing stuff. She said, I was like, oh my gosh, are we still running? We're running and running. And she said, imagine doing this when you're 27. So if Benny's out there, I miss you, Benny. But I think that was the most surprising for me. Is it was really hard for a lot of those international guys. They weren't used to that.
Right. Lisa, what about you? How did you find the training?
I was the same way. It's, pull-up muscle is different from push-up muscle. So I would say myself too, I zero. And every day I did one and I walk away. And then the next day I try to do two and walk away. And eventually, I was able to do the pull-ups and stuff. My biggest weakness is I don't like to run. I could run if I want to, and I have, but I only like nowadays I only run to the bathroom kind of situation. But I knew
I'm with you.
that. So my thing was for dive school is once the physical in the morning we all get together and we do our physical training and morale check kind of thing, and they run us to death. And once I got to the locker room before the shower, I sit down, and that's when I was like, "Phew, I made it through dive school." Because even before we even hit the classroom, because I knew that if I could get through this PT day every day, then I know that I'm going to be back in school tomorrow, because the academic part, it's a lot of learning, and we, especially for CBs, we're a construction worker with a slight medical degrees kind of thing. We learn about medicine, physics, and things like that. So we're kind of dangerous construction worker. However, I knew that every day when I got to the locker that I was going to be okay. And that's where I did my little 2-minute cry for a little bit, then jump in the shower, wash the tear away, and then get in my uniform and get out there and continue my day. So that was like the like really emotional part, was like after like just getting through that beat down every day.
Well, I can sort of relate to that. When I back in the late '80s, I was a dive master for a while, and I became an instructor. And back in the day, becoming an instructor was a bit different than it is now. They've relaxed a lot of things over the years. Unfortunately, I don't think that's a good thing. And but back then you had to do these swim tests in a certain amount of time, and they weren't easy. I forget the distances, but they were tough. And I remember we had two Navy guys in there, and I actually beat both of them. And I was pretty proud of that. So, but I can relate to that kind of stress because, we had to pay to go to be tested for these 2 or 3 days. And if you failed one thing during that test, whether it was a written or whether it was showing them teaching the class, or they would put you in the pool with someone and say, okay, mess up, but not tell you what they were going to do. If you messed up on any of those things, you had to go back and do the whole thing all over again. And, it was pretty pricey, and it was traveling and getting there and doing it all. So it was it certainly wasn't, I'm sure, what you guys went through in the service, but I remember having to perform and making sure you did it. And it's a little bit stressful. Bobby, how was your experience in the training?
Well, obviously the same kind of things,
Yeah.
The upper body strength. But the other thing that I don't know if it surprised me because I never even dawned on me was, of course, the equipment, the fit of the equipment, because, in the military, and it doesn't matter whether it's diving or something else, is military equipment is not designed for women's bodies.
Yep.
So, and probably still isn't designed for women's bodies, although at least they've started over the years to think about that. So
it
we
wasn't
got
back
to,
then, though.
no, I mean, nobody
Yeah.
even thought about it. And
No,
it didn't even
as
dawn on
usual.
them about what things, So, of course, the dive suits didn't fit us because, they're all designed for broad shoulders, narrow waists, and no hips. And, guess what? Women have hips. And so the suits didn't fit us, even though, okay, get them the smallest suits and then squeeze them in, for the hips. And then they're still huge in the shoulders. Okay, well, we can work with that. But then there's little things like that you don't think of, but there's still some variations between women's physiology and men's physiologies. And we had this old dive rig, and maybe Lisa remembers it. Well, maybe probably neither one of you guys dove the Jack Brown, but there was this it's called the Jack Brown. It was a surface supplied rig. It had a hose to it, and it's a full face mask. And it was used for underwater ships husbandry, working on, ships, repairing ships. A great rig, very convenient. We didn't want to have scuba. We wanted an air source from the surface so we could just work on ships nonstop without worrying about tanks. So it's just a full face mask. You stick it on your face. It has air coming into the side. Boom, you work. Well, it was a old full face mask. It didn't fit your face women's faces very well. It just didn't fit on women's faces very well. So during the training, we had this process that we had to get through, we had to qualify through, called ditch and don. So you're in the bottom of the pool, you have to take your mask off in the bottom of the pool, shake it out, so it's all flooded, stick it back on your face, ventilate the mask so that blow all the water out so that, it's all, it's air in the mask again, and keep on the dive, all at the bottom of the pool. Okay, piece of cake. You do that with your scuba mask and your regulator. So we're all down at the bottom of the pool, take your mask off, flood it out, put it back on, tilt your head up, turn your valve on, flood the mask with air to get all the water out and get the bubbles on, put your face back down. And I can't get a seal on this mask because it doesn't fit my face. And as soon as I put my face back down, it floods back up again. So I am determined to pass this ditch and don test at the bottom of the pool, but it just doesn't work because I can't get a seal in the water on my face mask, my Jack Brown face mask, and I just can't get it to work. So, the whole time I'm down there with my face mask and my head going up like this so I can get a breath of air, and then, immediately put my face back down and it floods again. And I'm like, I'm going to do this, darn it, I'm going to do this. And I have an instructor down there with me, watching, and also for safety reasons. And he's looking at me like, okay, this is not working. And I'm like, no, I'm doing this. I'm doing it. And he's giving me a 4, which means we're going up to the surface. And I'm like, no, I can do this. And he's giving me a 4. And I'm like, I can do this. And he finally is like, 4, we're going to, 4, we're going to the surface. I'm like, okay. I get to the surface and I'm so upset. And I think that's the only time I, cried during dive school, because it's like, I can do this. And he's like, stop it, Lieutenant. It's not your fault. And so, and it was, the gear just wasn't designed for, my face, my thinner, and my face isn't that thin, but it was too thin for the mask. And again, it's the design of the equipment. And that happened throughout my entire career and all of our careers. Neck dams don't fit us because we have thinner necks. And as soon as a guy puts on the neck dam for a surface supplied, the Kirby Morgan helmet, as soon as a guy puts it on, he stretches it out and no longer fits our necks. So it's something that we lived with for our whole career, but it started in dive school. The equipment just doesn't fit us.
Yeah. I can relate. I over 20 years ago now, when I first started working with Kirby Morgans, a good friend of mine, I've remained friends with him, Jeff Lane. He used to be in the Navy. He was a Navy diver, and he trained me on the Kirby Morgan. It was me, a dozen guys, and a bunch of alligators in Florida, which was so much fun. There's an alligator. Okay. We going to do anything? Well, just, keep an eye on it. Oh, okay. Then the alligator's eyes disappear and you're like, wonder where that went, kind of thing. And you're trying to hold on to the Kirby Morgan, and it's like 35 pounds, and you're sitting on deck and they've got their like hand on one of your shoulders to hold it up so that it doesn't, knock your head down. It's like, oh my God. Yeah. So I completely relate. I know what you're talking about. That stuff's never fit. So, it's interesting to me, what, as a woman in a traditionally male dominated field, I think that we've all encountered very unique obstacles. I mean, I know the stuff I've done with underwater forensics, it's always been me and a bunch of guys, always. It's like whether I've worked with police departments or sheriff's department, or, I'm training military guys on ROVs, whatever. It's always me and a bunch of guys. And I think that there's a unique set of obstacles that we've encountered as women in the industry and as divers, especially. I'd be curious, what are your thoughts on that? How have you navigated those things? Because I think just by being a woman and walking in the room, we always have to do. I feel like maybe this is me. I've never felt the need to prove myself, because once I get in there, it doesn't take long before they realize, oh, she does know what she's doing. But I think it's traditionally being in a male dominated field, so much so there are obstacles that we encounter that are different. How have you guys dealt with that or navigated those?
That is very true. And especially at the beginning, there was a lot of feelings of we had to do better. We had to do much better than our male counterpart to really prove our worth and earn our place in the community, and make sure that we were accepted in the community. I think that was the case just in being in the Navy, which was a male-dominated, no matter where we went in the Navy, it was a male-dominated environment. So when I went to my first tour as a Navy diver, I went in as the diving officer. In my case, I went in as the diving officer. And so everybody was subordinate to me in that case. So I really had to be on my toes to make sure that I was earning their respect right off the bat, which meant being aware of the fact that I did not know more than the master diver or the chiefs. I had to listen to what they had to say, and I had to be respectful of what they were doing and what they knew, and not come in there, like a bull in a china shop type of thing, and gradually build on earning my respect. But the other beauty of being in the diving community was that once you earn that respect, um, it precedes you and you become
Right.
part of the diving community. And
Yep.
then you know, the community wraps their arms around you as long as you then don't lose that respect and you continue to maintain that respect. And I think that was part of the what really drew me to the diving community. It's a small elite subset of the Navy, and you become a part of that. And whether you're a man or a woman, you're a diver first. And once you become accepted, you are part of the community, and it doesn't matter. And I that's the way I felt, and that's the way I felt like I was accepted. There might have been a few exceptions that still, a few holdovers that are still like, oh, women don't belong in the diving community, but that slowly went away. Over the course of my career, it appeared anyway. And I think that was what really was wonderful about our community. As long as you did what you were supposed to do, did your job, and continued to maintain, the level of competency that you should, your reputation stayed.
Yeah, yeah. The diving community can be very, um, it's sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? I think the diving community in general can be sort of, it can be a welcoming community in a lot of ways, and you're kind of one of the group if you're a diver, and then everybody starts geeking out on diving and and all of that. As the blue economy grows globally, Marine Technology Reporter has the world's largest audited subsea audience. MTR offers insights and analysis from researchers, innovators, and thought leaders in ocean subsea commerce, defense, and academia. At MTR, we always stay one step ahead. For more information on how you can stay on the cutting edge, go to www.marinetechnologynews.com. One of the things I'm really curious about too is, and Karen, maybe you can start this off, and Lisa and Bobby, you can jump in too. As a Navy diver specifically, what kind of missions or operations um, were you involved in that you can talk about? I guess.
Yeah, sure. So I was on two rescue and salvage ships, which were ARSs. The same, Bobby was on the same first ship. I was on the USS Hoist, and the second ship I was on with the USS Grasp. Did two deployments, and some of the missions we did were if there were mines, we did practice using pingers and going out and finding the mines. If a ship would unfortunately lose its anchor, anchors are very expensive. So if it ran out its anchor chain and dropped its anchor, they don't want to just leave it there. They needed someone to go and recover it. So that was a salvage operation we did. There are ships that run aground, unfortunately, and I was actually looking this up last night, and there are still a lot of ships, unfortunately, that run aground, which is why we need such good oceanography and underwater research nowadays. But if ships ran aground, then we would work out salvage plans, figure out how to get them afloat. And then if some underwater fixing up needed to be done, we could do that. And then some unfortunate missions are when you have aircraft that crash. And I think everybody here has experience with that. So, jets that fly off of, one we did was a jet that flew right off the carrier and immediately had some kind of catastrophic malfunction. The pilot ejected the backseater. By the time they ejected, they went down with the plane. Then you're recovering planes, you're recovering black boxes, you're out there recovering people. So it's not all coral and fish and out there having fun, right? You're out there, you're in brown water, and it's cold and it's deep, and you're working around the clock, 24 hours sometimes when they really need something recovered. And you're pushing yourself and your crew. But as Bobby said, dive community really sticks together and they all work hard and look after each other. So it was some interesting missions. You do training too. You go down on your stage and you walk off, and the next thing you know, you're wrestling around and you're having some fun, and you come up without your boot on. Not that ever happened to me. But master diver's like, "Ma'am, where's your boot?" I don't know, master diver. It just fell off. So there's fun times too. So
Of course.
yeah.
Can't all be Dirk Pitt times,
Right.
Oh,
Agreed.
Lisa, how about you? Have you had any of those similar missions? It sounds like Bobby and Karen, it sounds like you guys sort of overlapped and sometimes were even on the same vessels. Lisa, did you do some similar work like that? Or?
One of the perks of being a Seaweed diver, we fly coach or cargo to our job site. So there's only been one time that I actually got to serve on the USS Pearl Harbor and actually sail the seas, to say, as a Seaweed. So that was pretty cool, and got my shell back, golden shell back on top of that. But most of our job, unlike the fleet, we are we do construction, we do underwater construction. What does that entail? We could pour concrete and we make pier, we inspect pier. We also work with demolitions, so we do precision demolitions, um, to say like, okay, we need to take out this part, and this part only of the bridge, so we could bring it down safely, not just put a bunch of TNT and just blow everything up kind of situation. So we do a lot of precision demolition. We do harbor clearing. We've gone to foreign nations, and I always go talk to the harbor master and see if they have any honey-do list to say. And since we're here,
Mm-hmm.
is there anything would you like us to investigate or do something? It's like, oh, there's a big old coral that everybody keeps hitting. Can you go take it? Take a look. So we've been tasked to go blow, obstructions in the water, or do a light. We don't do heavy salvage like the fleet divers, but we could pick things up out of the water. We also are not just, we are diver first, but we're also diver and CB first. So we actually do a lot of humanitarian work when we go on our deployment sites, especially in the foreign nations. Not so much in the U.S. We have a specific task and get in and get out kind of thing. But when we go out and travel in the world, we might have a project to make a boat ramp for special ops folks, but then we'll send out a small detail out to a school and help rebuild a school that it's been neglected or unfinished, because we can lay some blocks and put some power to the buildings and things like that. So we kind of do double duties at that time. So that's one of the unique things about the Seabees. And on top of that, we are also we're trained to go diving under the ice. So I was fortunate to go up to the North Pole and did some ice diving early in my career. And that was one of the memorable diving. And we at that time we were like the only unit in the in the Navy that could sustain life, build a tent city over the ice, and live out there for 30 days and perform other underwater tasks that happens on recovery, or hey, look for this, or they'll send us out to a pinpoint location, and by the way, there's no holes there, so you have to burn some hole on 13 feet of ice and figure it out how to get down there and go look for things like that. So it's been we in the CB community, definitely we do many types of diving, and we sometimes get to do cross training with the fleet, which is another fortunate part, because there was a one time I was on a ship and we were traveling through the nation, and one of the valves on a ship uh, was leaking really, really bad. And the skipper of the boat, hey, I know you're a diver. Can you guys fix this? I don't really do ship's husbandry, and like, let's wait till we get to the port, because you definitely do not want to put this boat on dead in the water, because I'm going to have to stop things, stop the boat from moving before we get to do anything. long story short, I called one of my friends in the fleet because, as you said, we are in a close knit community, even fleet and CBs, but we're all one big family kind of thing. So I asked one of the fleet master divers, hey, I have this situation. I think I need this thing called a cofferdam. Right? It's like, where are you? What are you doing? Why are you even talking about cofferdam as a CB? It's like, well, this I have a valve. I think I was like, yeah, I remember in dive school, you need this cofferdam thing. We just don't have that. But guess what? I have all the chamber. I have, at that time, I was the OIC officer in charge of the small detachments. Like, I got a chamber, I got scuba gear, I got all the things. He's like, can you send some guys and bring the cofferdam and help us fix this? It's like, yeah, sure. They were like, they were really kind of laughing at me, but they came to help. But the caveat for me was, hey, can you have one, like, few of our guys dive with your fleet, dive, with the guys to install the cofferdam? Because do we ever going to do that? Probably not, but this is a perfect opportunity. So anytime we get a chance to do cross training, we jump on it. And we have a lot of joint exercise too with the different, like the carrot exercise, and there's like a bunch of other in the naval exercise that we actually work with the Matsu guys and things like that. So it's been very unique experience, definitely being a CB diver. And
It sounds like it.
mhm.
Now, that's actually interesting because, obviously you guys have all seen a lot of different things in your work and on missions that you've been a part of. So you must obviously develop a lot of skills, and these skills that you've developed as a diver, how have you used those outside of the Navy? Like, how have they applied outside of your job as a Navy diver?
For me, as a Navy diver, I was a supervisor also. So that means that whenever I put the guys in the water, their lives are in my hand, to say.
Right.
So as a civilian, now that I've retired and working as a civilian, a lot of people will just take their job and kind of like, somebody else will do it, or
Right.
it's not my swim lane. It's not my pay. I don't get paid to do that. So it's one thing I learned as a diver, not just diver, but in the military, right? It's like, it doesn't matter what the task is. My thing is, be proactive and not reactive. Don't just walk over things that it's broken, or because somebody might need it. So let's just fix it and do that. The same thing with the dive equipment. If you see something that's broken, we don't just like, oh, let's just put it up on the shelf and deal with it later. We usually try to fix it right then, and that way we're prepared for the next mission. And that's one thing I noticed, like, sometime in the civilian sector, you kind of lose that focus where, you know, not everybody has that ownership because of your gear or your situation, your task at hand, because it might not be in their swim lane kind of thing. So there's a little bit of battle every once in a while, but it's that's one thing I learned, I think.
How about you, Karen?
Yeah, definitely perseverance, I would say, the same thing that Lisa said. So, in life in general, there's always ups and downs, and to learn how to deal with the ups and the downs and maintain is so important. I think also being tough. I think we're all pretty tough ladies, right? I think anybody, and you too, Rhonda, I think we're all pretty tough. Anybody who can go beat up in the bottom of a pool and hold your breath for 2 minutes and make it out and go on dive ships and be the only woman out there, or do 10 pull-ups or whatever it is, right? And so for me, definitely, I've raised 3 daughters, and I've instilled all those same characteristics, I would like to think, in my 3 daughters. They're all scuba diving qualified, and that's what we do for family trips, is we dive all over the world.
That's awesome.
And they just know that's what we're going to do. We're going there. And I think that if you ask them what's one of my favorite phrases, it's definitely "suck it up, buttercup," because I definitely live my life that way. Like, all right, I'm just going to suck this up and just keep on going. Right. That's perseverance. And I try to instill that into my kids as
I
well.
might have used that term a few times in my
Right.
lifetime. And another one I've been using a lot lately is remember to chart the course, not the storm.
That's a good one.
Stop
Yeah.
bitching and find a solution. I don't want to hear about the problem. Let's get to the solution. So
Yes.
chart the course,
Exactly.
not the storm. So yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. How about you, Bobby?
Well, when we dive, especially surface applied, it takes the whole team
Yeah,
to get the diver in the
yeah,
water. And I think back to, I was involved in the Monitor expeditions, which were just a very large scale deep ocean salvage operation. The USS Monitor was a Civil War ironclad Union ship that that fought in the Battle of Hampton Roads in 1862, which was a famous Civil War battle. And then the Monitor sank off the coast of Cape Hatteras in December of 1862, and then was lost until 1974 when some researchers, Duke University and other researchers, finally found the remains of the Monitor in 240 feet beneath the ocean off the coast of Cape Hatteras, and became the first national marine sanctuary under NOAA in 1975. And so, over the course of many years, NOAA kept an eye on it and researched it, and realized that the Monitor was starting to deteriorate, and trying to conserve it and keep it as the national sanctuary for the U.S. And in conjunction with and went to Congress and got put together a plan to try to preserve as much of the Monitor as possible, because it is a national treasure. It was the first ironclad, and it has a lot of historical significance. So NOAA and the Navy went to Congress and got some funding to do some work to try to preserve it and bring back some of the high visibility artifacts, because the Monitor was the first ironclad. It had the first revolving gun turret and the first steam engine of its type. And so in 2000, 2001, and 2002, NOAA and the Navy and the Mariners Museum, which would retain the artifacts, came together and put together these 3 years of large scale deep ocean salvage operations to stabilize the ship, so it would slow down the deterioration, because we're at 240 feet of seawater off the coast of Cape Hatteras in the Gulf Stream. And then also try to recover the large artifacts, the turret and the steam engine and other artifacts. And the Navy was the organization that had the skill sets with Navy divers, and the equipment, mixed gas, saturation, and so forth. And it would become a tremendous training experience for Navy divers, which was the key, and also working with the archaeologists at NOAA. So in 2000, the summer of, and we're working off the coast of Cape Hatteras, which of course is Hurricane
right.
Hurricane Alley, essentially. So we had work during the few months where there weren't winter storms and then hurricanes. So in 2000, the expedition was to stabilize the ship as much as possible and make preparations to remove the steam engine. In 2001, we were out there for approximately 40 days, and carefully removing the steam engine. And again, it's an archaeological site, so we couldn't just go down there and cut things out and yank them out and bring them to the surface, because we didn't want to ruin the Monitor. And so we had to do it strategically and surgically
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what the archaeologists told us Navy divers. So we had to follow the archaeologists' plan, which was good. I mean, it was good. And then in 2002, we had to go down, and the monitor sank upside down. And so the monitor was laying on top of the turret. So we had to carefully get to the turret by removing some of the armor belt and some of the hull of the monitor, and then excavate around the turret, and then carefully remove the turret and bring it to the surface, which was like almost a 200-ton lift. And so we had to use a barge with a 500-ton crane to lift it out of there. So not only deep ocean salvage at 240 feet, but a heavy salvage operation, relatively speaking, a 200-ton lift. So we had to use, so we had a barge and all this stuff. So it was a large scale salvage operation with multi-agencies involved, requiring a lot of teamwork. So big scale teamwork all the way down to the small scale teamwork of a dive team, mixed gas dive team. We also had a saturation dive team down there. And then we had the NOAA dive team working as well off to the side, because we didn't mix NOAA divers and Navy divers, but the NOAA scuba divers working as well. So 3 sets of dive teams working on the plan, coordinated together to accomplish this amazing mission, which I can now say was successful with no injuries, no casualties, no damage, and successfully recovered these artifacts, which are now in the Mariners Museum in Newport News, Virginia. But it all took planning, and the bottom line is it all took teamwork. And
Right.
so having been a member of the leadership part of that, as well as a diver, I learned a tremendous amount about teamwork and how important that is, not just for as a diver that you rely on your teammates to keep you alive, which we all know that as divers, that other diver next to you is the person who's helping keep you alive, and that other member of the dive team that's holding your umbilical is keeping you alive, or at the gas farm keeping you alive, that sort of stuff. But the whole part of the team that's helping you plan the operation or plan the dive. We have the saying, plan the dive
and
and dive the plan.
Plan, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that since I've been retired, I've applied that to a lot of, some everyday life, but a lot of other projects that I've been involved in over the years as after I've retired and done other work with nonprofits and that sort of stuff, because it's a good way to just live your life and do things.
Yeah, I agree. Karen, I have because you have 3 daughters. I want to know, what advice would you give to young women considering a career in military and diving specifically, or in underwater technology?
Yeah, sure. I would say do it. Definitely do it. This is a wide field. There's many different ways you can get into the water. You can dive for the military. As you said, one of my daughters is actually at the Naval Academy right now. She's a sophomore there and studying oceanography. My oldest daughter went to Nova Southeastern University, minored in marine biology, and did diving down there on coral. Did things with the Guy Harvey Foundation.
Nice.
So you could get into, there's a lot of charities that are doing wonderful things for the ocean, that if you have a degree and you're into science and you want to do that, you can go out there. Another one is, which Bobby knows about, Force Blue, where they are doing things in all the national marine sanctuaries, working with NOAA to help coral reefs that are being damaged by hurricanes. So there's a lot of different ways. The conventional way of becoming a diver through one of the various different organizations and going out and becoming a dive instructor. Or we have met like Megan Haney Greer, who did a lot with underwater. She did I think not commercial diving, but actually free diving. That's what I'm trying to say. She did free diving, and there's so many different ways to get out, get into your oceans, get into your bays, study it, snorkel, dive, and there's many careers that you could do. If you have that interest, you should do it. And the military is just another great way to get in there and get involved and serve our country in a really positive, uplifting manner, I think.
And this is a question that's more for any of you can jump in on this. Where do you see the technology going in the next decade or so? Where are you seeing, in your experience, where are you seeing the technology move towards?
For me, I think underwater habitats
Mm-hmm.
is it's even going that way right now. There's a great company out there, Deep, who's building underwater habitats and already putting them down on the ocean floor at different depths for different built for different time periods. One of the things I really like about that is they also, about this company, is rescued the ship Flip. I don't know if you all have heard about Flip.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I went to the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, got my degree there, had experience with Flip. It's a research vessel that then can be flipped perpendicular, and it's a great platform for studying the oceans. And unfortunately ran out of funding in 2023, was going to be scrapped in 2024. They have saved it, and with the US Navy and some, I think, NRL dollars maybe, or ONR, have rehabbed it and are getting ready to use it. So that's what I think. We're spending a lot of money, the world and many, many countries, to go and try to live on Mars or live on the moon. Mm-hmm. And for me, we have 70% of the Earth is covered in ocean. We don't even know what's at the bottom. Let's go down there, explore, and then I think we could build communities and be living down there on the ocean floor. That's my personal thoughts.
I agree. Flip is so cool. Oh my God. I'm so glad that they're saving that, because it is such a cool vessel. It's amazing. One of a kind, obviously.
One of a kind.
We can't lose that. That's such a treasure. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I see in my endeavors, because I've been, in the industry full time and continue to be so, it's a lot of autonomy and AI. Is a lot of the stuff that I'm involved in too. So it's really interesting to see how things are developing in that area as well. It's pretty fascinating. By the way, this has been a really interesting conversation, you guys. It's really been cool to meet you and to talk to you. And I'm like, every time you're talking, I'm like, oh, been there, done that. Yep. Oh yeah, know that. Yep. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wasn't in the military, but on the between the research and the forensics, and I've worked with marine archaeologists that just did this whole photogrammetry thing. And
oh wow,
so
I love that.
I worked with Bob Ballard, and so
yes.
Yeah, and so I've been on a bunch of expeditions throughout the years, and so it's funny. We're talking about civilian versus military, but it's all it's all the same. It's all the Kirby Morgan. You've mentioned anything? I'm like, right. Oh yeah.
Right.
So it's really interesting. So we've been talking about, because this is the 50th anniversary for women Navy divers. And by the way, how many to date in those 50 years? How many? This is a two-part question for you guys. How many Navy divers that are women have there been in this past 50 years? And I understand there's a reunion coming up, and so can you talk about that as well?
Sure. So in 50 years, there have been only a little bit over 300 women who have gone through Navy Dive School and graduated. So it's a very small, elite, wonderful group. And we're really looking forward to celebrating that group. And that's going to be in November 11th through the 14th down in Orlando. It's a week-long celebration. We're going to have a booth at DEMA, which is in Orlando, and also have a reunion dinner at Old Red, on Thursday the 13th in the evening, and anyone can come. It's not just Navy divers or women Navy divers. It's any diver or anyone who wants to celebrate us. We would love that. And we have a website, awnd.net, where you can go and buy tickets for that.
And what prompted all this is that we want to really celebrate all these wonderful women who have really broken through and made the decision to just do something unique by becoming women Navy divers. And as we've talked about, it's not something that is normal, and they're all one of a few who have taken the step to do something totally unique, starting with Donna Tobias in 1975, all the way up to women who are currently serving today. And they all need to be celebrated, and their histories need to be remembered, and their service needs to be remembered. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that the service of these women are not forgotten. And, it's been 50 years, and this is significant, and this is our opportunity to say thank you. Not all the women are going to be able to make it, but as many as possible, we want to try to bring together and celebrate the service of these women, whether they're there in November or not. We want to really celebrate their service. We also are going to celebrate one in particular that week because we're so thrilled that we're going to be inducting Lisa into the Women Divers Hall of Fame. Her service has just been phenomenal, and as she said earlier, she was the second woman CB to go through Navy Dive School, which is very significant. And she didn't talk enough about her actual career, but there's a lot of stuff that she left out about what she did through the course of her career that is just amazing. And if you were to read her full bio, you'd see some of the stuff she did, not only in her career, but even after she retired and continued her government service. We're all really proud of her being inducted into the Women Divers Hall of Fame, which will also happen in November on Veterans Day, November 11th, in Orlando that week. So that's another thing to celebrate while we're down there.
I'm super excited. It's going to be a fun-filled week, not just day, but a whole week of different events, and I get to meet my new family, the Sea Sister family. So my realm of the family is growing, and I'm very happy to be part of it, and now I'm going to have the resource to ask questions, or the choral studies that I would have never been able to do throughout my career. So I want to maybe get to participate maybe one day to put the little chorals in or things like that. So I'm super excited to kind of do outreach and meet the whole team member, and I'm very honored to be a part of it, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do. So just call upon me.
That's great. Well, thank you all so much for not only your service, but also for being on our podcast, Deep Dive, and taking the time to chat with us. It's been fascinating. It's been really interesting to learn about your backgrounds and what you've done and your accomplishments. And so thank you for taking some time to chat with us today.
Thank you, Rhonda, for having us.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thanks, Rhonda.
This episode of Deep Dive was brought to you by the publishers of Marine Technology Reporter. Interested in being a guest or a sponsor for Deep Dive? For more information about this podcast and many other opportunities for your company to stay informed and in the know, go to marinetechnologynews.com. And as usual, hit like and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. See you again on the next Deep Dive.